The government shutdown, will it affect your business? That is what we're talking about today on the Never Lose a Deal podcast. This is Lorillia Brown-Phillips, and I am your host here on the Never Lose a Deal podcast, where I talk about creative ways for real estate investors to scale and expand their real estate portfolio. And so today I am coming to you with a special broadcast because of the title of this show, The Government Shutdown and SBA Financing. So, as I film this podcast episode, you may be also watching on YouTube or some other social media platform. And as of today, it is October the 1st, and it is the first day of the government shutdown. So, my question to you is, will it affect your business? Wanted to do this special episode is because when I went through the data of my podcast and on one of the podcasting platforms, I found out that my previous episode where I talked about SBA financing was the second most listened to podcast of all the podcasts that I did. Now, if you know me from YouTube, you know on YouTube I have 900 plus videos, but here in the podcasting space, I'm close to almost 100. I think I'm at about 52 episodes, but somewhere in those 52 episodes, I did a broadcast on SBA financing. And what I found was that it is one of the most popular listened to podcasts. And so I thought this would be a great time to reintroduce this topic back on my platform because there is a lot of buzz going on with this topic. Now, normally, yes, I do talk about creative ways for real estate investors to expand their real estate portfolio. But if you had listened to that other broadcast where I talked about SBA financing, and I'll remember to make sure I put it in the show notes, I talked about how SBA financing can be a creative financing source for real estate investors to tap into. Now, I always say, when it comes to SBA financing, you cannot use SBA financing to invest in real estate, but you can use it to buy real estate. Those are two distinct things: investing in real estate versus buying real estate. And when it comes to SBA financing, you can only use it to buy real estate. And so I'm not going to go into the basics of SBA financing on this episode, but I do want to talk about the government shutdown, and maybe it may be affecting you as a business owner. Now, with this government shutdown, not going to go through all the particulars of if you think it's the right thing or the wrong thing to do, but we know that certain parts of the government has been shut down. I know right now, Social Security, Medicare, things of that nature are still going on. Of course, the post office is still running. The TSA for the airport, they are still at work. I know air traffic controllers are still working at airports. But I kind of want to talk about the SBA financing side of this shutdown and how it may affect you as a real estate investor or as a business owner. So, unfortunately, SBA financing has ceased during this time. During the government shutdown, there will not be any SBA financing that will be lent out to business owners. But there is a big but. Now, you've heard me talk about this on many episodes. Depending on the lender that you're working with, and now if you understand how SBA financing works, it's financing that comes from the government, but the government puts in place intermediaries, which are banks, to be able to disperse the funds to business owners. Hence, a lot of these banks work with brokers similar to myself, where we work with business owners to be able to disperse these funds. Now, of course, the government will not be, accepting any more applications, but that does not mean, and I know, every lender is different, every bank is different. This is what I know. because in the coming days that before this happened, lenders that I worked with, that I work with, made sure that they kept us abreast on what to expect if this was to happen, because of many of us have clients who may be in the stage of getting financing. Well, let me share this. If you are in that stage, now of course it depends on the lender. I'm only going to speak to the lenders that I work with and the clients that I currently am assisting with, helping with financing. And so I want to give you this information as a guide, because if you're a business owner and you are currently working with a lender or a broker, these are some of the things that you can possibly ask. Now, one thing that I do know for certain, if you are in that stage of getting financing and you have already been given an SBA loan number for that particular file, of course, 9 times out of 10, the banks are probably going to still disperse those funds to you as a business owner. But this is where the big but is. If you are in the beginning stages where you're really at the stage of just gathering documents, a lot of that may be put on hold. Now, this is what I'm telling clients. And of course, I got the word from the banks that I work with. Um, it is still a good recommendation to continue with the process. So, when the shutdown is over, you will be in line to be able to still get your financing. Now, of course, like I said, information I'm sharing with you is just a guide. You need to talk to the bank that you're working with and a lender or broker that you're working with to see if that is the case. But that is what I am telling clients, that don't be discouraged. Now, like I said, for those who are already at the disbursement phase and you've already been given an SBA loan number, if you don't know that, your broker or lender would be able to tell you. You're pretty much at the final stretch. But for those who are in the infancy stages and you kind of just was beginning to, gather your documents, you may be put on hold for some time. And so this is something that could possibly affect you as a business owner. And so not only do I want to talk about that, but this is now the time. And I had been telling, if you've listened to any of my other pad podcast episodes, I talked about, while now more than ever you want to have alternative forms of funding that you need to be tapping into for your business. I have been shouting this at the rooftops to my clients, as well as sharing this knowledge here on this podcast, because there are other funding sources that business owners can tap into. Now, this is what I've always tell business owners. When it comes to SBA financing or any type of financing outside of the traditional bank, every lender is going to be different. So you want to be very careful with just assuming what one lender does, another lender will not do. And this is why now more than ever, creative financing should be something that you as a business owner or as a real estate investor may want to consider. Now, let me just share the story with you. A dentist that I'm working here with in my current market here in New Jersey is one of those business owners who is at pretty much the final disbursement stage of getting um, his financing. And so, what SBA financing looks like for that business owner, because let me just give you a sidebar. I always tell potential clients or clients that you want to be certain that the lender that you are working with, and this is one of the mistakes many business owners and real estate investors I find make, is that they assume that it is a one size fits all when it comes to SBA financing. Furthest thing from the truth. Why? Because every SBA lender as well as banks have their area of where they want to work with. There are some SBA lenders who primarily only want to work with businesses or companies in manufacturing, or maybe they only deal with some who are in the hospitality, the hoteling industry. You want to be certain that you are working with a lender that can assist you with your particular industry. Going back to my example, this particular client of mine is a dentist in the service based industry. Like I said earlier, SBA financing is not for investing in real estate, but it's for using it to buy real estate. This particular dentist wanted to expand their wealth plan. Instead of, when they looked at how much they were spending in rent, they knew that they wanted to be able to do some updates, expand their practice. It was more economical for them. When they looked at their long term plan, it was best for them to purchase a commercial space. And so, working with this particular client who is a dentist, that is something that they are going to use the SBA financing for, to be able to purchase real estate for them for their dentist practice, as well as it's like a suite of about four other businesses. So I know there's going to be like an IV business, where you get the IVs, and then the other business. And the great thing is that this particular dentist had relationships with these businesses, so he had already had leases signed, deposits taken for this particular transaction. The other type of business was a, I can't think of that type of business, but it's in the medical industry. When you have surgical enhancements done and you need a place to rest, they had that suite, and then it was another suite where the surgical work is going to be done. So I say this to say, this is not only an investment for this particular dentist, because not only will it expand their portfolio when it comes to them being able to build wealth, but they will now have a business where they don't have to worry about leasing a space. They can buy a space, and SBA financing is going to assist them with doing that. So it is so imperative now more than ever that you want to start having conversations with individuals like myself who are strategists with helping business owners as well as real estate investors find what is the best financing solution for you. Because the vague thing when it comes to creative financing is that many people want to give their idea of what creative financing looks like. And I always say there's 100 ways to skin a cat. Run from the person who wants to give you a one size fits all for a particular category. Creative financing doesn't just look like one thing, it can look like different things. And that is why it's so important that you work closely with a business professional like myself, where we can map out a plan for you to see what is the best solution for your business. Because one of the biggest mistakes that people do is that they try to navigate these waters by themselves. A lot of times, when it comes to funding and a financing strategy, it takes more than I just need to get a loan. It really takes having an idea of what it is, what are your goals in mind, what are you looking to do, what's the strategy that you are looking to pursue, what is the goal you're trying to pursue, and then what is the financing that would work best for you to be able to put in fruition what it is that you are trying to do. And that is what something like myself would help you as a business owner or real estate investor do. So, going back to the shutdown SBA financing, Yes, SBA financing is going to be a wing of the government that operations have ceased. Um, it is what it is, but it is most important and imperative that you talk to the lender that you're working with or the broker to find out what are their processes during the shutdown. What are they doing? Because as I mentioned to you, every intermediary bank is different. And so you want to know, what does it look like for the lender or the broker that you're working with. So I know I have been very transparent with clients that I'm working with. If something that I said today is of interest of to you and you want to know how you can creatively put a financing package together for your business or for your real estate investment portfolio, let's have a conversation, because now more than ever there are lending institutions that are lending. It will not look like the traditional way of doing business. There are other type of lending arms, especially when it comes to the commercial side, the asset-based industry side. Many of those funding solutions are going to look different than what you may be familiar with. And that's why it's so important to have someone who specializes in this space. And that would be me. So once again, wanted to come to you with this special report. As I mentioned to you, SBA financing was something that I found out that many people were interested in. Like I said, it was one of the most watched and listened to podcast episodes. So I'm glad to revisit this. And at least I know going into, future podcast episodes that, hey, this is where a lot of people want to go deep. And it's part of the creative financing tool that I do work and share with people with, and be able to assist them with getting the financing. So like I said, you want to learn more about me, everything will be in the show notes, as well as that past episode that I did. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll remember to attach it to this video. But as always, if you have a loan scenario and you would like to discuss and talk about it, please go to www.leverageportfoliocapital.com. You'll see the ticker scrolling on this screen. And until the next time, I will see